Here's the shockingly true story of the enslaved man who taught Jack Daniel everything he knows about making whiskey. Today, Jack Daniel's is one of the most popular whiskey brands and easily recognizable brands in the world. But here's how they got there. Around 1850, a young orphan boy escaping a troubled home showed up on the doorsteps of a preacher, grocer, and surprisingly, a distiller by the name of Dan Call. He was looking for work and asked Dan Call if he could work on his plantation to earn money for himself. While working as a laborer on Call's farm, Daniel took an interest in Call's distillery. After pestering Call for quite a while, Call eventually relented to the request of the young Jack and decided to introduce him to Green. Call referred to Green as the best whiskey maker I know, and he instructed Green to teach the young boy everything he knows about how to make Tennessee whiskey. Very little is known about Green's early years beyond the fact that he was born in Maryland in 1820. It's not clear, for instance, if he was actually born into bondage or if he was enslaved later in life. What we do know is by the mid-1800s, Green had gained renown as the most skillful whiskey distiller in Lincoln County, Tennessee. So much so that his enslavers, the Landis and Green Company, often rented him out to area farms and plantations who were eager to benefit from his whiskey making skills. He was instrumental in developing what is now called the Lincoln County process. That's the method by which they filter sugar and maple through charcoal to make most of what we know today as Tennessee whiskey. It's a little known fact that this technique was first used in West Africa to filter and clean water. For this reason, most of the enslaved people during this time made the best distillers because of their knowledge and expertise in this area. In fact, the methodology for distilling whiskey was notoriously laborious and tedious work. And some plantation owners, including former Presidents George Washington and Andrew Jackson, used enslaved workers to run their distilleries. As the years passed, Green and Daniel continued to build not only a mentorship but a friendship as they perfected the Lincoln County process and began selling their popular brand of whiskey in Lynchburg and surrounding towns. By the time the Civil War began, Jack began peddling his whiskey to soldiers, and this greatly increased the market share and popularity of the brand. Meanwhile, Green continued to perfect the process and deliver the smoothest whiskey in town. Once the war ended and emancipation came, Daniel actually bought Call's distillery and renamed it after himself. I mentioned earlier that Call was not only a distiller but also a preacher. So as a result, many of his parishioners had begun to raise their eyebrows about why a preacher was selling whiskey in the first place. So he was forced to sell his business and get out of the whiskey trade altogether. Shortly thereafter, Daniel opened an even larger distillery at a nearby plot of land where Green's sons, Louis, Eli, and George, also began to work. Their employment began a tradition of more than 7 generations of the Green family working either together or with the Jack Daniel's brand. Unfortunately, this integral part of history of the Jack Daniel's brand was mostly ignored for over 150 years. Insert Fawn Weaver, a researcher and businesswoman who visited the Jack Daniel's distillery in Tennessee. After going to the distillery for 3 different tours and not hearing a single mention of Green, Weaver threw herself into researching his life and work. She wound up gathering more than 10,000 documents that verified and expanded on Green's importance to the Jack Daniel's brand. By 2017, her research had gained national attention. So much so that Jack Daniel's parent company began committing to its earlier promises by recognizing Green as the brand's first master distiller on the company website. Also, in 2017, Weaver launched the Uncle Nearest whiskey brand to pay homage to the godfather of Tennessee whiskey making. Today, Uncle Nearest is the most awarded American whiskey or bourbon, receiving awards in 2019, 20, 21, and 22, and having amassed over 550 awards and accolades since the brand's launch in 2017, including 362 gold medals or higher, 65 best-in-class honors, and an average critic score of 92. Uncle Nearest is currently sold in 50 states and 12 countries, and is sold in more than 25,000 stores, bars, hotels, and restaurants. They also have a 323-acre Nearest Green distillery in Shelbyville, Tennessee. The 323-acre property has become known as a full-blown destination for whiskey lovers, history enthusiasts, and families. It's a masterclass in storytelling and history making, paying homage to the godfather of Tennessee whiskey making and highlighting the things that Tennessee is known most for.